Space is a vast place. Human could only find out few elements in the space. There are so many places and things to explore in the universe. From far away to alien planets to distant galaxies that could harbor intelligent life, to massive black holes, to bright star. However, it is still not possible to conjure the whole universe because of the distance and time. Did you know that time in space and time in our planet is not the same? If you are a fan of Star Trek, you are surely familiar with the warp device. In Star Trek they used high-quality space device or warp device which could take people to planet and explore the universe in a very short time. The ships were faster than light speed. Well, it was possible in science fiction, but is it possible to create an actual warp bubble in real life to travel in space, that too in a very short span of time? It is not new for human being to travel around the space. There are several rockets or spaceships which were created by human beings, and they could even send human to space. For example, Elon Musk already declared to send human to the planet Mars for living, but with regular ships it will take almost 5 months to land on Mars. Then why it is not possible to create a warp device that would be faster than light speed and will take lesser time? In this video we will briefly know about the warp bubble and its possibilities to be real. What is warp bubble or warp device? Warp bubble or warp device is a detached region of space atom which is theoretically capable of moving faster than the speed of light. Which means, a warp bubble can open the possibilities to travel space by moving faster. Another name for warp bubble is Alcubierre drive. It is named like that because Miguel Alcubierre Moya, a Mexican physicist, had proposed the Alcubierre drive, a speculative warp drive by which a spacecraft could achieve faster than light travel. In 1994, Alcubierre watched an episode of The Next Generation while studying Einstein's theory of general relativity, where massive masses can create a curve in space and time. And so Alcubierre picked up a piece of paper, did the math, and laid the groundwork for a paper that appeared in a scientific journal later that year. In his study, he described the Alcubierre engine, a theoretical can travel locally, faster than light. In this paper, he built a model that could transport a flat volume of space inside a curved space bubble. This bubble, known as a hypercorrelated local dynamic space, it is driven forward by the local expansion of space atom behind it, and the opposing contraction in front of it. Thus, theoretically, a spacecraft would be moved by forces generated during the change due to space-time. Warp travel is no stranger to fans of the Star Trek series. Warp engine is a captivating futuristic piece of technology from the Star Trek universe that, since its debut in 1966, in this series and movies, the characters explore the universe using powerful and fast spaceships, traveling from planet to planet, and communicating with a group of extraterrestrials. The torsion engine is at the heart of the attraction because without it the story would be unthinkable. The universe is strange, unimaginable, and incredibly vast, and even if you want to visit the next star, the immense cosmic distance creates an almost impossible barrier. Well, such engines are yet to be discovered. Though there are several theories about the Alcubierre drive, recently it seems some scientists have discovered how to create this warp bubble by mistake or accident. What is the discovery? How does it affect space travel? And how does it affect you personally? A Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency-funded research project at NASA's Johnson Space Center may have accidentally discovered how to build a warp drive engine. The scientists published their findings in July 2021. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency DARPA is a research and development agency of the United States Department of Defense responsible for the development of emerging technologies for use by the military. Fast forward to 2021 and Dr. White, whose 2012 paper was written while he worked at NASA as Advanced Propulsion Theme Lead, is doing research funded by DARPA on objects called Casimir cavities. These cavities are formed of two parallel plates with a pillar running between them. These things are small, mere microns in size, and they do something really interesting. create a negative vacuum between the plates when exposed to a regular vacuum. By some amazing luck, an engineer conducting the research at the right time, someone knowledgeable about warp technology research and knew that what he was looking for and realized that the research has perfectly and accidentally created the warp bubble. The observed effect is not an analog, nor something similar to a warp bubble, but a very small, very modest, lifelike structure, which is completely consistent with the study of Alcubierre-Aka true warp bubbles. If it's true, then White's team may have discovered the world's first warp bubble. Even so, if scientists had all the materials they needed for the so-called Alcubierre drive, then the energy emitted by the space fabric that warped the spacecraft would be enough to tear apart planets. White told a Science and Technology journal that from his knowledge, this is the first paper in the peer-reviewed literature to propose a viable nanostructure that must exhibit true warp bubble which real and humble. As it stands, the bubble's negative energy density distribution matches the mathematician's written requirements with Alcubierre. White and his team plan to conduct more experiments on the ability of smaller models to better understand the chances of a potential warp drive. During the research, White also mentioned that the warp bubble observed though is tiny. He added, nanoscale tiny, and a result of negative energy research using Casimir cavities, exploiting some of the bizarre quantum physics effects of these unusual structures. While this is very much a beginning, it opens the opportunity to do more research into the specific question of warp bubbles and Alcubierre's equations. White and his colleagues named this discovery as a toy model consisting of a 1-micron diameter sphere centrally located in a 4-micron diameter cylinder could be used to explore the Casimir effect energy density experimentally. For now, they are not thinking about the warp bubble but continuing their research on Casimir cavities. Though the discovery of warp bubble is an accident, it does spark the fire among the scientists. However, there are some limitations of this warp bubble which are getting considered by the scientists. Most people are familiar with the concept of warp drive through what they've seen on Star Trek, but today our spacecraft are currently limited to the laws of standard Einsteinian physics. To accelerate your ship, you have to throw something in the opposite direction to the one in which you wish to travel. Throughout the history of aviation and aeronautics, this meant burning fuel and shooting out the back of the ship in a vigorous physical reaction. The limitation of this approach is that eventually you run out of stuff to throw. The other limitation is that your ship is still subject to Einstein's equation describing special relativity, which states that as you approach the speed of light, more and more of the energy you expend goes into increasing your own mass, until you reach the point where no matter how much more energy you put in, you can't go any faster and you never quite reach the speed of light. It's impossible to accelerate faster than light using standard physics, because your ship just gets more massive the more energy you put in, and it gets so massive you can't do anything more with it. Furthermore, the warp drive domain had a big boom in the mid-1990s. Where theoretical physicist Miguel Alcubierre mentioned this requires a huge amount of negative energy. The problem is that no one knows how to generate that negative energy, or even if it exists. Last year, when the field of warp bubble received a boost, physicist Derek Lentz showed that positive energy, i.e., normal, is enough to create a warp drive bubble if you take advantage of hyperbolic spacetime instead of linear. Lentz's theory totally criticized Alcubierre's proposal. The expansion of spacetime takes place behind the ship, and the contraction of spacetime takes place in the direction of travel. Both expansion and contraction take place on all sides of the soliton in Lentz's theory. The soliton is, in essence, the spacetime itself, which is curved to a certain shape but remains stable. A warp bubble of 200 meters in diameter would then only need the amount of energy comparable to about 1/10 of the Sun's mass. Lentz is not alone in showing that theoretically a warp bubble can be achieved with only positive energy. He is joined with Alexei Bobrik, Gianni Martire, Sean Fell, and Lavinia Heisenberg. But they did not discuss how to do it. On the other hand, White declares that it would be a foolish step to plan space travel with a vague idea of warp bubble which was accidentally created. White says, it is too early to ask questions about some type of actual flight experiment. In my mind, step 1 is to just explore the underlying science at the nanomicro scale. He and his team are continuing their experiments. Perhaps the Eagle Works laboratory can take us from science fiction to reality. Discovery of a real warp bubble will change the scenario of space traveling. If the scientists can solve the theories and puzzle of the device and create an engine that can move faster, it will take no time to explore the space. As we have extraordinary space agencies who can provide best of the spaceships. Once we can go faster than light and find a whole galaxy out there, our problems here on Earth are going to become really small. We don't know what to expect. It could be extraordinary. Even if it's empty space, there are millions of planets we can visit, settle, and learn stuff that we can never learn here.